Dre all day.
Life just improved significantly because you made the decision to tune into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves anybody out there to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together. What you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the book, the show known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is you are the moment that you're waiting on. Thinking of a time when me or you or anyone feels that things are kind of stagnant in your life, your business, your sport. Things are not popping off the way that you want things to pop off. Nothing seems to be moving fast enough or maybe moving at all. And at that moment, you're kind of waiting, hoping, planning for something to happen that will change things for you. That quote, change, close quote, things for you. You just want that change to happen. You don't know what the change is. You're just hoping something changes because whatever's going on right now just ain't it. That ain't the thing. But I thought of, when I was thinking of this thing, that a lot of people do this. They sit around and wait for something to happen to change their situation because they're not feeling the situation as it stands. And I thought of stories of people who were in such places, people who were in situations where things weren't really going the way that they wanted them to, when things, it just wasn't popping off the way that they wanted things to pop off. People who I've mentioned on this show before, someone like 50 Cent, after he had gotten shot and it looked like he was pretty much done with rap music, he didn't want to go back to the streets. What was he going to do? You think of stories of Hernan Cortez. If you don't know who that is, he's the conquistador who basically conquered Mexico from the Aztecs and settled it into what we now know as what it is. But there were people there before Cortez got there, but he's the guy. Whenever you hear people say burn the boats, Cortez is the guy from that story. And they didn't actually burn the boats, they actually sunk the boats. But I mean, you get the point. Steve Jobs, when he came back to Apple, and they were looking for him to rejuvenate the company because the company was falling apart. Napoleon Hill, before he wrote his book Think and Grow Rich, he had actually went on a trip to Philadelphia and didn't have much money, barely had enough money to stay in what they called, I believe they called it boarding rooms at the time, was basically a hotel of that time, just to find out what would happen. And he wasn't even going for a job opportunity, but things started turning in his favor. DJ Khaled, I read a story. Khaled was saying that there was a point where he was kind of in the hole financially, not making the kind of money that he wanted to make, even though he was very well known at the time. He had his first child on the way. He realized that he wasn't really where he wanted to be, but he knew he needed to make some moves in order to get there, and he started doing certain things. There's a basketball player by the name of Danny Green who plays for the LA Lakers right now. He's played for several teams in the NBA. And there was a point when he was playing for the San Antonio Spurs, and his coach, Greg Popovich, actually his coach saw that Danny Green had some potential to be a solid player, but Danny Green wasn't really being that solid player. He hadn't yet become that player. And Greg Popovich got Danny's college coach on the phone, a guy by the name of Roy Williams from the University of North Carolina. And those two guys, Popovich and Roy Williams, had a come to Jesus moment with Danny Green. Had a really stern conversation with him and let him know, like, listen, kid, you're wasting your opportunity here. If you really want to last in this league and be something in this league, be a solid, respected entity, there's some things that you're going to have to do different. And what all of these stories have in common, from Hernan Cortez to 50 Cent to Jay-Z, Steve Jobs, Napoleon Hill, DJ Khaled, Danny Green, and anyone else you want to fill in the blanks of, fill in with other names, of people who were in situations that weren't quite going the way that they wanted to, but then the situation did turn around and maybe the story became a story to where they can tell other people what that story is and what happened and how things went. Understand that the moment for each one of these individuals and anyone that you may be thinking of, the moment was within that person. The moment was not something that happened to them. The moment was not something that somebody said. The moment was not some situation that occurred. The moment was already within them. Now, once they came to realize that something needed to change, that was the moment. and then they started to do things differently. And then when they eventually turned it around, maybe they got to a point where they could look back and connect the dots and say, man, when I had that realization, when this thing happened, that thing happened, then I started doing things differently. And they can call that the turning point. They can call that the moment, but the moment doesn't happen to you. The moment is coming from within you. And that's what we're talking about here today. So let's get right into it. Point number one, the topic once again is that you are the moment that you've been waiting on. Number one, most people who become rich, financially well off, and they're publicly noted for it, they don't get there by winning the lottery. In other words, and that's a metaphor of what I'm telling you right there. In other words, it is not some big bang situation. When someone becomes successful, however you define that term successful, when a person gets there, they don't get there because there's some one moment that occurs when the skies part and everything just starts happening for them automatically. That's not the way that it works. There's no moment when everything just, quote, happens, close quote, and all of a sudden you're great. All of a sudden everybody knows you. All of a sudden everything is working. Even though it may seem like that in the stories that you hear or whatever you read in a book or what you heard somebody else tell, the bastardized version of somebody else's story, that's not the way that it works when people become successful. Again, and by your definition of that phrase, successful, even for yourself, you think about it. While that is the story that gets popularized, or when someone has to tell the shortened version of their story, they got to tell the 2-minute version of a story that took them 45 years to live. Most of the time, it's the slow progression of actions, disciplines performed over an extended period of time consistently that builds up and eventually creates the win for an individual. That's the way that it actually works. That's not the story that gets told because, frankly, most human beings just don't have the patience to hear the whole story and really dig in to the details of what a person did. So we bastardize it and keep it short because human beings have short attention spans. I mean, I read that the average human being these days in 2020 has a shorter attention span than a goldfish. So who's going to sit there and listen to a story that took somebody 30 years to live out, 15 years from when they started their business to when it became, quote, successful, close quote. Not so many people had the patience to do that. I mean, a lot of people only had the patience to read a book. They want the Cliff Notes version. Now this whole business is based around, let me take a book where somebody took 30 years of their life to live it, and then they condensed it down to 300 pages. Let me take that 300 pages and let's condense that down into something that you could read in 30 minutes. And then let's condense that down to something that you could watch in 3 minutes, because people just don't have the attention span to even get the condensed version of the condensed version. But anyway, while what gets popularized is a shortened version of somebody's success story, most of the time all it is just a slow progression of actions happening consistently over an extended period of time. The problem with that being what it is that most people don't want to live that life. Most people don't want to do most people do not want to perform consistent disciplines over an extended period of time. That just sounds boring, doesn't it? It just sounds like hard work. All right, no, most people don't want to do that. Most people are not signing up for that voluntarily. Even though that may be what they're signing up for, they probably don't get sold on it that way. All right, I don't walk into someone in a room and say, hey, look, I'm gonna tell you how to perform certain disciplines consistently over an extended period of time, and then you're gonna get success. All right, nobody's running to the front of the room to sign up for that. All right, that doesn't work in sales. You got to sell the sizzle, but they're actually getting the steak, as they say in the sales world. It might be the other way around, but you get the point. Sell people on the fun part, but they actually got to get the hard part. And I'll be talking about that in a future episode of this show. The moment that most people talk about when you talk about another person's success, or you talk about your own success, or a successful person talks about when they're telling the story of their success, talk about it was this moment, this happened, and then boom, I did this, and all these great things started happening. That moment that they're talking about is not a moment. It's actually a daily discipline, again, applied over time consistently, that creates steady progress that eventually becomes success. And then once people start noticing the success, they're like, wow, what was the moment when everything turned for you? The reason why people ask about that, what was the moment when everything turned for you? Because everybody's looking for the 4-leaf clover. Everyone's looking for the quick thing. Everyone's looking for that quick turnaround. What's the one thing that I got to do? What's the one thing that I have to know? What's the one course that I got to take? The one book that I have to read? The one idea I got to keep in my head? The one change to everything that I'm doing that's going to turn everything around? Even though that is the sexy fairy tale version of success, that is not the truth of success. Only from afar does success look like it happened very quickly. that it happened very simply. That if you just take these 2-3 things that this successful person was doing, all of a sudden you can become successful just by doing these 2 things that that person did. But what about the other 215 things they were doing that they didn't get a chance to tell you about because they had to tell their whole story in 3 minutes? But you know better because you're here and because you've been listening to me on a consistent basis. You know better than to think that everything's just going to happen from one moment, one grand gesture that occurs, one grand gesture from the universe that all of a sudden just turns your fortunes around and everything is just amazing from that point forward. That's not the way it works. That's what's popular. That's the story that gets told. Listen, let everybody else go looking for the 4-leaf clovers in the yard. Okay. You don't be the person looking for the pot of gold, running after rainbows, looking for the pot of gold. You got to be the person who understands how success actually happens. Success is not something that happens to you one time. Success is not an event. Success is an ongoing process that is renewed on a consistent basis. We're still on point number 1. Let's move on to point number 2, because you know better than to be looking for the 4-leaf clover here. Point number 2, today's topic once again, is you are the moment that you've been waiting on. Definition of moment is a very brief period of time. That's the definition. So let me tell you something that you probably would agree with. You don't actually want a moment. All right. You don't want your success to be a moment, a very brief period of time. Or you don't want 15 minutes of fame, do you? What you actually want is something that sustains, something that lasts over an extended period of time. For your moment of victory or your moment of success to last naturally, the performance and the results have to last. Right? If you want your moment of success, whatever success you wish to achieve or whatever success you have already achieved to this point, if you want it to last, then it just naturally makes sense that you're going to have to keep performing and you're going to have to keep producing results. Because if you're not performing and producing results, how could you possibly sustain success? All right, the success is probably a byproduct of some type of result that came as a result of your performance, right? So what you must do is prepare for and then start to actually deliver on a consistent basis. If you want consistent success, you must be delivering on a consistent basis. There must be somebody, some way out there that you are providing value to. That's how success is created. Now, success is always going to deal with other people, because if you don't want to deal with anybody at all, you don't have to worry about success. Because success is really about how you recognize yourself, but also how other people recognize you. So if you don't want to deal with people at all, you can go get a cabin out in the woods somewhere, some remote woodsy area, not deal with people at all. You can figure that you're successful. Nobody's going to know about it. But if that's what you want, that's what you want. But if you're going to be in civilization amongst other human beings, in order for you to create success, you must be providing value in some way, shape, or form to other people. So as long as you're preparing for and actually doing the delivery of value consistently to other people, then you can be consistently successful. You don't need an invitation to do this. Nobody has to invite you. Nobody has to give you permission. Nobody has to tell you to do it, like we talked about yesterday. You just have to choose to start. You don't want to have a moment of success. You don't want there to be this very brief period of time where something happens and all of a sudden the heavens part and then your whole life is different from that point forward. Again, that's what they tell you in the fairy tale books. That's the story of Cinderella. They put the glass slipper on and all of a sudden she just became amazing. That's not the way it works. All right, it's an everyday thing. It's a mindset thing as well. It's not just you put on a glass slipper and all of a sudden you become beautiful. Beautiful starts with first of all, the way that you think, the way you see yourself in the mirror, then everybody else starts to see it. So the story of Cinderella just doesn't logically make sense based on the work on your game philosophy. But hopefully I'm not spoiling anybody's fantasies by telling you that. Prepare for and start to deliver on a consistent basis. No invitation necessary, just start. Point number 3. Today's topic. The moment that you are waiting on is you. You are that moment. Here's the thing though. There will be a moment for you. After everything that I've said here so far, there will be a moment for you. There will be a very brief period of time for you when you can see the heavens parting, when you can see the stars aligning, when everything actually is working the way that you want it to work. However, here's the kicker. You do not control that moment. You don't control when that moment will occur. You don't control who's going to be around when that moment happens. You don't know if it's going to be this year, next year. Maybe it already happened. Maybe it's happening right now. You have no idea when, if, where, how this moment is going to occur. But there will be a moment. Here's how it's going to happen though. So let me lay it out for you so you can be on alert. You're going to be out doing your thing. working on your game, like we talk about all the time. And one day, somebody who is somebody is going to see you doing your thing. Somebody who's somebody. You won't know who they are. They're somebody, but you didn't know that they were somebody. Or it's somebody who knows somebody who somebody's going to see you, and you have no idea who that person is. You don't even notice that they're there, but they notice you. And they're going to see you doing your thing, whatever that is that came as a result, that is coming as a result of you working on your game. They're going to see you. You're not going to know that they saw you. You're not going to know that they're paying attention, but they're going to be impressed. They're going to be intrigued. They're going to be paying attention. And then they're going to make a phone call. They're going to send an email. They're going to shoot off a text. They're going to make an introduction. And it's going to be about you. And from that point forward, things are going to start taking off. And you may not even, looking back, connecting the dots, you may not even know when this moment occurred. You may not even know that it happened. You may not even know that somebody saw you who knew somebody, because they may never come around and let you know that they did. You may just get a call one day or an email one day, or things just start happening for you one day. You're like, wow, things just started happening. But it didn't just start happening. Maybe the person who was involved, who set the whole thing off, doesn't tell you that they set the whole thing off, because it's a normal thing for them to set things off. That's what you're going to see as your moment. And you'll not even know that that person saw you and that they started the moment. You're going to think it was all you. You're going to think it just happened. You're going to think it was just God's plan. It just came out like that, just that way. But there are no coincidences out here. That person, whoever it is, they're going to be impressed. They're going to make a call. Introduction is going to be about you. Things are going to take off. And here's the thing. As I said already, you don't know who this is going to be. You don't know when this is going to occur. You don't know where you will be when it happens. You don't know where that person will be. You have no idea exactly how they're going to do what they do that sets everything off for you. But it is going to happen. So here's your job. Since I'm guaranteeing you that this is going to happen as long as you continue to work on your game, but you don't know any of the other things. Who, what, when, where, why, how. You don't know any of those. So here's your only job. Keep doing your job. Whatever the job is that you signed up for, whatever you decided to get into, whatever the work is, whatever that showing up every single day to do the work, whatever that is, you got to keep doing that, because you have no idea. If you're an athlete, one day there's going to be maybe you're on a team where random people come to practice all the time. Or one day, one of those random people is a person who has the key to you getting to where you want to get to. You don't know that they're that person. They do not announce that they're that person. Nobody tells you that they're that person. And if you decide to not show up that day, well, you just blew your opportunity. Your moment was right there, but you missed it. But if you show up every single day to do the work, regardless of whether the success you've expected to achieve is yet to occur, one day somebody's going to see you, or somebody's going to have seen you. They're going to remember you. They're going to look you up and they say, oh, that person's still at it. That person's still performing. That person's still doing their thing. Maybe they saw you and thought nothing of you, but then later on they have a need for somebody just like you. They think of you and they go see, are you still doing your thing? Are you still showing up all the time? Despite the fact that maybe you haven't gotten the results that you've expected to get, is that person still doing the job? If the answer is yes, that's when your moment occurs. But actually, it's not when your moment occurs. Your moment occurred 3 years ago when that person first saw you, but they didn't have a need for what you were offering back then. But now they do, and they remembered you. Are you still doing it though? Because if you're no longer in the game, now they're going to move on to the next person. So you understand that your moment, you might think your moment was one time, but your moment was actually, it happened a long time before that. But then when a person saw that you were still doing the work, all of that time, from the first point of contact to the last, all of that was your moment. So it's not actually that brief period of time. See, you have no idea when luck is going to shine on you. And luck is an important factor in success. Or let's not act like it's not. Okay? Luck does matter. As the saying goes, the harder you work, the luckier you get. The thing about that saying is, when you're working hard at something in which you have some inclinations, when you have some skills and you've been working on your game, you've been showing up all the time, doing your job, not expecting luck, not waiting for luck, not wondering when the hell the luck is going to happen. You're just doing your job because you know that's what you signed up for. You know what the disciplines are. You understand the disciplines and you're sticking to the disciplines. That's when the luck occurs, not when you're looking for it. Usually you don't get lucky when you're looking for luck. If someone goes to the casino because they need money, usually they leave broke. When people leave the casino with more money than they came in with, usually it's because they weren't too concerned about losing some money there that day. That's the way it works. That's the way the universe works. When you're chasing after something that runs away from you. We got a masterclass on that exact topic coming very soon, so stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, wherever you subscribe to this, make sure you're subscribed, or however you got access to this, do it again to make sure that you're getting it. There will be a moment for you. You don't control it. Your only job is to stay in the game. Then the moment will occur when it's ready to occur, not when you want it to occur. Let's recap the topic, which is you are the moment that you are waiting on. I was thinking of a time, or you could be thinking of a time when you feel like things are stagnant, things are not popping off, and you're hoping, planning for something to happen that's going to change everything for you. But understand the stories of anyone who had some big change, or what was told as some big change that just changed everything for them in the moment. It didn't really happen that way. They chose to make the moment, but the story gets condensed down to it seeming like just this one thing happened and all of a sudden everything popped off. That's not really true. Hernan Cortez, Steve Jobs, Napoleon Hill, DJ Khaled, Danny Green, 50 Cent, Jay-Z, they all had these situations where it seemed like just one thing happened and all of a sudden everything blew up. That's not the real story. The real story is they decided to become the moment themselves from within, not something that happened from outside. Point number one. Most rich people don't get there by winning the lottery. Again, that's a metaphor, but it's also literally true. In other words, it's not some big bang situation where everything just happens and all of a sudden everything's working. Well, that's what, again, the story that gets told a lot of times because people have short attention spans. The real story is the slow progression that builds up over time that creates the win for people who stay in the game. The moment is actually daily disciplines applied over time on a consistent basis that creates steady progress. Only from afar does it look like it happened in a short period of time, but you're smarter than that. Point number two, definition of a moment is a very brief period of time. You don't want a moment. What you want is something that lasts for a long time. You want something that sustains. For your moment of victory or success to actually last, then what you need to do is perform and produce results on a consistent basis. When you prepare for it and start to deliver all the time, success happens all the time. You don't need an invitation to do that. You just have to choose to start. And point number three, there will be a moment for you, but you don't control that moment. So what's going to happen is you're going to be doing your thing, working on your game like we always talk about, and one day somebody who is somebody, they're going to see you. You won't even know that they saw you, but they're going to be impressed. They're going to make a call or an introduction. They're going to remember you. And then things are going to start taking off for you. Maybe then, maybe a month later, maybe a year later, things will take off for you because that person took note of you and they want to check on you later and make sure you were still doing your thing. You don't know who, when, or where this is. So your only job, your only commitment is to keep doing your job as usual. Work on your game. Dre all day.